Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. This morning we're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 22, Text 37. Sarira manasa divya, sarira manasa divya, Vayashe ye chamanushaha, vayashe ye chamanushaha, botikascha katam klesha, botikascha katam klesha, badante harisamsrayam, badante harisamsrayam, sarira manasa divya, Vayashe ye chamanushaha, botikascha katam klesha, Bharante hari samsrayam, sarira manasa divya, Vayashe ye chamanushaha, Botikascha katam klesha, Bharante hari samsrayam, Sarira manasa divya, Vayashe ye chamanushaha, Botikascha katam klesha, Bharante hari samsrayam. Vayashe ye chamanushaha, Botikascha katam klesha, Bharante hari samsrayam. Vaishnavis. Harira manasa divya, Vayashe ye chamanushaha, Botikascha katam klesha, Bharante hari samsrayam. Word for word. Sarira, pertaining to the body. Manasa, pertaining to the mind. Divya, pertaining to supernatural powers. Vayashe, O Vidura, yea, those. Cha, and. Manusa, pertaining to other men. Bhotika, pertaining to other living beings. Cha, and. Katam, how. Klesha, miseries. Bharante, can trouble. Hari samsrayam, one who has taken shelter of Lord Krishna. A translation, therefore, O Vidura, how can persons completely under the shelter of Lord Krishna in devotional service be put into miseries pertaining to the body, the mind, nature, and other men and living creatures? Purport. Every living entity within this material world is always afflicted by some kind of miseries pertaining either to the body, the mind, or natural disturbances. Distresses due to cold in winter and severe heat in summer always inflict miseries on the living entities in this material world. But one who is completely taken shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord in Krishna consciousness is in the transcendental stage. He is not disturbed by any miseries, either due to the body, the mind, or natural disturbances of summer and winter. He is transcendental to all these miseries. Sarira manasa divya, Vayashe ye chamanushaha, Bhotikascha katam klesha, Bharante hari samsrayam. Therefore, O Vidura, how can persons completely under the shelter of Lord Krishna in devotional service be put into miseries pertaining to the body, the mind, nature, and other men and living creatures. So this chapter we're reading about Swayambhuva Manu, and he was the father of Devahuti, and actually this chapter is entitled The Marriage of Kadama Muni and Devahuti. Next chapter, we're coming to the end of this chapter, so next chapter will be more how Devahuti was married to Kadama Muni. So this is a very interesting topic in history. Swayambhuva Manu, he's like the Manu, and he's the first Manu of the day of Brahma. I think previously it was mentioned about how many years a Manu lives, long time, millions of years. Swayambhuva Manu was not of this living on the earth. He was living in the higher planetary system. Actually, I remember reading Swayambhuva Manu. He lives on the Swayambhuva Manu, maybe even on the Brahma Loka. He's like a governor of the universal affairs, the Manu. He makes sure everyone understands. He's a teacher and he's a governor, and many duties. Swayambhuva Manu, he oversees, governs the universal affairs in different areas. So he lives long time. Each Manu is a title. Prabhupada actually mentions the word man came from Manu. From Manu came man. So oversee the activities of the man. And of course the humans, they are existing not only on the earth, but there are higher human beings on the upper planetary systems also. They're like the human species, but more developed beings with different types of body even than the body, but they're still considered amongst the human species of life. So the Swayambhuva Manu, there's now I think the 14 Manus, yes, in just one day of Brahma. Just one day, and that Brahma lives for trillions of earth years. Lord Brahma, trillions, 311 trillion. Isn't it 40 billion or something like that? So Lord Brahma, he lives for a long, long time. And his one day is equivalent to so many millions and millions of our earth years. So in his one day, there are 14 Manus. So the Manu, as was described in the previous verse, he lives for 71 cycles of the 4 yugas. So we have the Satya, Treta, Dwapara, Kali. Each age is 400 and what is it, the Kali? 464, isn't it? 464,000 years is the correct? Yeah, 464. No, 432. 432,000 years is the Kali Yuga, isn't it? 432,000. Just this age of Kali, we've only passed 5,000 years. So 427,000 more years to go. Then you have the Dwapara Yuga. Double that, it must be 864, and then add another 400, and then your Treta Yuga, 1,298,000, and then the Satya Yuga is 1,728,000 years. This is the length of the time of each Yuga. So you have the 4 Yugas, so the Manu lives for 71 times that. 71 times if you add all those years together, I remember adding one time many years ago, I think it came to exactly, I can't work out in my head at the moment, something like 6 million years or something, or maybe less, I can't remember, but a long time. So 71 times is a long time, many millions and millions of years, just one Manu. And so this is a title, someone goes into the position of the Manu. And then Swayambhuva Manu was the first one in this day of Brahma, this particular Manu. Now we're in the Vaivashvata Manu. This is the Manu we're living under. He is the Vaivashvata Manu. It's like the 8th Manu. And previously were Chakshusha Manu. And so, there's a list given in Srimad Bhagavatam, who were the Manus, what was their title. And this one was the first one, Swayambhuva Manu. So he lived long life, and he had sons, Uttanapada and Priyavrata was another son, and he had one very beautiful daughter, Devahuti. So he was thinking now, my duty, of course, is to make sure that Devahuti is very nicely situated and married to a nice husband. And so Devahuti had heard about Kadama Muni from Narad Muni. Narad Muni went there, so she became very attracted to Kadama Muni just by hearing about him, and this was ordained obviously by higher authorities that this marriage would be a good one. Although, we'll read more in the next chapter, although, Kadama Muni was Brahmana Rishi, so he was living very austere life, brahmachari life, very austere life, and of course, Lord Brahma, the grandfather, he always wants to, one of his duties is to make sure that there's a good population in the universe. So he was always wanting the population to increase. So his desire was that Kadama Muni get himself married. And so the Lord appeared to him. I think this was previously mentioned. The Lord appeared, and he was doing tapasya, Kadama Muni, living just in the hut, doing tapasya, meditating on the Supreme Lord, and he was very fortunate that the Lord appeared to him. Very rare thing that the Lord directly appears before someone. The Lord appeared to him and he spoke to him, and he said, I know your desires. And Prabhupada actually, I remember reading this in some other temples, this particular section of the Bhagavatam. And of course I've read also previously. And so I know your desires, because the Brahma desired that he should get married, so one can live a good life as brahmachari, and then someone can become married after being a brahmachari. So your desire is that you have a nice wife, so everything is going to be arranged nicely. You will find a nice wife. And interestingly enough, Narad Muni, practically on behalf of Brahma, and the Lord was talking to Devahuti also. So both were mutually attracted, and it was a very good match. A very good match. And even though, now she was a royal princess, used to opulence, because Swambhu Manu was like an emperor. He was a Manu, so very rich, and she had all very extravagant lifestyle, although she was very good devotee also. But she lived but she didn't care so much for that thing, because, and she knew her future husband as living very simple, austere life, just in the hut in the forest. And so she would give that up, the life in the palace, for the life in the forest, to be the wife of Kadama Muni. So she was willing to do like that. There's a very rare quality, and for anyone to, man or woman, to willingly give up something like that. You have money, you have prestige, you have power, and you give it up for a higher thing, because she knew that by being married to Kadama Muni, it was very good for her spiritual life. Very good for her spiritual life. So there's one has to always think there are two paths in the world that generally go side by side. One is called the Svadharma, and another one Sanatan Dharma. Svadharma means your occupation, what you have to do in the life, and prescribed duties. Generally, this is given as according to Varna and Ashram. And one's Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Sudra, and one's a Brahmachari, Grihastha, Vanaprasthanya. You have your Varnas and Ashram. So one can go in any one of these things, and if they're qualified, they can be. And so then there are prescribed duties. Prescribed duty. And follow the prescribed duty of the Brahmana, or the Kshatriya, the Vaishya, the Sudra. Everyone has some prescribed duty. So you can follow that. That is Svadharma. But Sanatan Dharma is the spiritual path. Pantratriki Bhagavat Marg we are following in our Vaishnava, in the Gaudiya, in our Gaudiya Sampradaya. We are combining Bhagavat Marga, which are hearing, chanting, remembering, serving and all these things, and Panchatriki Vidi is given, especially Narada Pancharatra. Along with that, because we're just beginning devotees, we can't fully fix on the hearing and chanting, therefore some principles are given in a very summarized way. Originally they were given by the Lord. He spoke of these Panchatrika. He spoke, Lord Hamsa gave these things to the Kumaras actually. But anyway, Narada Muni has summarized, and there are many scriptures just giving these principles, but mainly we follow Narada Pancharatra, and so prescription is given, deity worship, so many other principles that we all follow. So along with the Bhagavat Marg, we have a Panchatriki Marg. So this is like Sanatan Dham activities. Sanatan Dham activities. Now in this verse, Swayambhuva Manu was such elevated personality that even though he was Manu, a governor of the universal affairs, big responsibility. We may think we've got some responsibility. Maybe we're working and we've got some position in the office or something like that. But you imagine being or maybe someone's a big politician, the president or the prime minister, big position, and certainly a lot of responsibility. But imagine being a universal governor, not just one country, but make sure things are going on over many planetary systems. You've got your specific duties. Of course, there are many others to help in that regard, but still, it's a very big position. So, but in spite of all, and then, he had his own family, and he had so many things to take care of, but in spite of all that, he was a very good devotee, and it's actually mentioned that he, as he was going through life, he never became attached to any of those things. He did his duty, but at the end of the life, he fully was concentrating, isn't it? I think that was mentioned previously. Yes, he was engaged in hearing, contemplating, writing down, chanting the pastimes of the Lord. This is Swayambhuva Manu. So here in the previous 35, he was a saintly king, Raj Rishi. Not the king, but Raj Rishi. And although he had all types of the material happiness, he was not dragged down, as the previous verses were saying. He's not dragged down, just consumed by that thing. People become consumed by the material side, and they don't think anything of the spiritual. But this material side, it comes and goes. Sometimes you have, sometimes you don't have these. A very temporary thing. But one is consumed, then they'll, sometimes, according to the karma, they'll get some good things, and then not so good things. But as far as spiritual, all are not good things, because it's just temporary. But anyway, he had it all, but he was not entangled in just thinking of that thing. He had comfortable life by the mercy of the Supreme Lord. He always acknowledged that this is by the grace of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is the difference between devotee and non-devotee. Non-devotee just thinks by my activity everything is going on. But no, these things, actually, non-devotee or devotee, these things are going on under the auspices of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He gives through his representative, he awards different reactions and actions and so on. So whether non-devotee or devotee, but non-devotee thinks, no, just by my actions I'm getting these things. But the devotee thinks, no, I am in the service of Krishna and he is kindly giving me something, and by his grace I am getting that thing, by his grace. So there's a difference mentality. And so Krishna knows what is the mentality. And so Swayambhuva Manu, even though had everything, by Krishna's mercy, had all comforts of life, but he wasn't consumed by that thing. He did his duty. This is Svadharma. But he was also concentrating on the Sanatan Dharma. Sanatan Dharma. And Prabhupada actually in the previous purport, in spite of enjoying material advantages, one can actually be liberated by simply, he goes very simply, he says, just by chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Of course, Hare Krishna mantra if one can chant all the time. But of course, because we're just beginning, we're finding difficulty even chanting the simple thing Hare Krishna mantra. So therefore, Bhagavat Marg, Mantra Triki Marg, we follow certain things. But this was Swayambhuva Manu who was doing these things. And then when his life was coming to an end, and here is his long life, as we already described, long, like millions of years. And then the next Manu comes, someone else is appointed. You have to come in that position, and the other one retires. And so he was coming to the end. And of course, his sons, Uttanapada and Priyavrata, they were there to carry on. Priyavrata, I think I remember, Priyavrata was very detached. And so Uttanapada was ruling. But then Priyavrata, Uttanapada passed away, and then Priyavrata was brought back for some time to take charge. And then, of course, as he was getting older, he said, now I have to get my daughter. What about my daughter? She has to have a nice husband. And so he thought that was put to him, Kadama Muni. And even though he was the emperor, still, because he was a Swayambhuva Manu, was a very good devotee, it was suggested to him, Kadama Muni, and actually this is sanctioned by higher authority. He was not at all averse to that. We were just reading at New Gokula about Daksha. And Daksha, he was very averse to Lord Shiva. And he just, even before Sati married Lord Shiva, because she wanted to marry Lord Shiva. She's the eternal consort of Lord Shiva. Adi Mahashakti, Adi Shakti. And there's one story about Daksha. He wanted to have a beautiful daughter. So I think Lord Brahma suggested to him, you pray to the Mahashakti, Adi Shakti. And she appeared to him. And both he and his wife, and Daksha and Prasuti, his wife. And she said, yes, I will come as your daughter. But if you insult me in some way, if there's some insult, then I will not stay. I will leave. So anyway, they got the Sati as the daughter, and she was very wanting to marry Lord Shiva, being actually eternal consort. And she heard about Lord Shiva, and she wanted to marry. But Daksha was not very inclined to Lord Shiva, just because of his the way he lived, everything, so many reasons he thought. He recovered himself with the ashes, and he's not very suitable for my daughter. Sati brought it up. No, you're not going to. So he was a great Prajapati, chief Prajapati, and emperor, like a big king, and had all riches. So he was not inclined to have Sati marry Lord Shiva. But heart was intent. But still he was against, and there's one story where he was against, and he brought many suitors to come and woo his daughter besides Lord Shiva, and even went to at one point, but she wasn't interested in anyone, and even at one point he arranged a Swayamvara for the daughter, where many come. And then traditionally, the one she likes, she goes and places the garland. But again, all of them came to gain her hand in marriage, and she didn't like any of them, so she just threw the garland in the air. And miraculously, Lord Shiva appeared, just from invisible to visible, and the garland fell on him. And so, very wonderful. She was so happy, and so Daksha was caught out. So then he had to agree, although he didn't like. And then later on, we were just reading there that how he did one yagya, and Daksha came in, and then everyone stood up to receive Daksha. He's the chief Prajapati, but Lord Vishnu Brahma didn't stand, Lord Shiva. So he thought, why, he's my son-in-law, I'm the father, why he didn't stand? So then he said many bad things against Lord Shiva, and so he was very much against the whole story. I won't go into that story; it's a very long story. That Sati eventually gave up her own life because of her father's treatment of her husband. But anyway, so Daksha was against, and But here we have Swayambhuva Manu. He was in favor. And Swayambhuva Manu's wife, I forget what was her name. Anyone can remember her name? Huh? Satarupa. Yes, Satarupa. Satarupa, she was also in favor. So she was also, now Daksha and Prasuti were not in favor of Lord Shiva. But Swayambhuva Manu and Satarupa, she was also devotee. He had good wife. Swayambhuva Manu had very good wife, a very good partner, helping him in all sorts of ways, and also, in his devotional side, she was also a great devotee. So it could have conceivably, the husband could have, the father could have agreed, but the mother, no, I don't like. But both of them agreed together, and so it was very good. And actually, the brothers, Uttanapada passed away, but Priyavrata, no, there's no objection. Sometimes you have the elder brother causes trouble also, just like who was that elder brother? Shishupal, he was against Krishna. No, Rukmi, I'm thinking. Yeah, Rukmi was against Rukmini marrying Krishna. And even though the father and the mother, they were in favor, but the elder brother was against. So he caused all sorts of problems. That Rukmini had to send a letter to Krishna, and Krishna had to come and kidnap her right in front of Rukmini. Even, he wanted Shishupal to marry her. So he said, no, Shishupal's better. No, I'm against Krishna. Shishupal should marry. But then she wrote a letter, and then Krishna came in and kidnapped her. So you can have father and mother against. You can have elder brother against. There's a big one, is the elder brother who's against. And but you have some who are very dedicated. Gandhari married Dhritarashtra even though he was blind, but who was the uncle? Shakuni. Shakuni didn't like. He was against. Mother and father were all right, but Shakuni didn't like. He just, he didn't like just because of the fact he was blind. That's the main reason. He was blind. Oh, she's got to have a blind husband now? And he won't even be the emperor because he's blind? No, he's not good. He was against. And actually, it is said the grudge Shakuni just started from that. Gandhari accepted, mother and father were up, but Shakuni was against. He tried to speak with his sister, but don't marry him. And then the grudge against the whole Kaurava dynasty was there from that point. Although it was seen that he was on the side of Duryodhana, but actually he was two-faced, Shakuni. Anyway, so many instances in history of someone who's against, someone who's for. But in this case, we go back to here, that both father and mother, brothers, everything was all right. And even though Kadama Muni was a very poor brahmana, just like a yogi, living like the yogi, and Devahuti was wanting to marry him. She's a very good devotee. So she accepted that, and she accepted his lifestyle also. She didn't try to go there. We'll read in the next chapter. She didn't say, all right, well, now we can go and live in the palace. She just surrendered to his life. So that's very rare in anyone these days, to surrender to a lesser life. So she could have argued, well, okay, why continue? Now you're married, you're not a brahmachari anymore. Your brahmachari life is over. So now you're grihastha, so let us go and live. Our father is willing to give us nice palace, everything like that. We can live very happily. Later on we'll read that Kadama Muni, in order to have the children, everything like that, he made with his mystic power, he made some flying palace, and they enjoyed for many years like that. But in the beginning, she just adopted his lifestyle. She surrendered to his lifestyle. Very rare for ladies these days to be like that. But she was very exemplary, Devahuti. And so here, in this verse today, is also mentioned that, well, Swayambhuva Manu, he was just, in his older age, he was so completely absorbed in the Krishna consciousness, and therefore, O Vidura, how can persons completely under the shelter of Lord Krishna devotion be put into miseries pertaining to the body, the mind, nature, other men, living creatures? So Swayambhuva Manu, older age and so on, whatever happens, because even in the higher planets you can't get a perfect situation. It's certainly a lot better than on Earth, and especially in the Kali Yuga. There's so many miseries. Prabhupada explains this a little bit. There's always some kind of misery, he says. Always afflicted by some kind of misery. You had misery from the body, adi bautic, adi atmic, and adi daivik. He says here these are the misery. Always going to be some misery, even in the higher planets. Maybe not as much as on Earth in the Kali Yuga, especially. But so you can't get away from it. There's that verse in Matra Spashasta Kunteya Sitoshna Sukadugada Agama Painut. This just comes to Tikshish Bharata. So, how can anyone who's in the transcendental position be affected by these things? And they come by others to you. They can come in your mind. Someone saying something, your mind's disturbed in so many ways. Your body's disturbed. You get sick. The diver is, flood. Just like now we're having floods or the drought and so many things. And so, but one is transcendental. How a transcendental personality sees it. So Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, he says to Arjuna, non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress and their disappearance. So one understands philosophically. Look, happiness comes in this world, it's all due to sensory perception. This is a point that Krishna says. They arise from sense perception. Happiness and distress. It's all that sensory perception means, your eyes, your touch, your smell. Something's a good smell to you, something's a bad smell to you. Some sound is good, some sound is bad. Touching one thing is nice feel to you, touching another thing is bad feel. And so on and so forth. Or something is pleasing to the mind, something is very unpleasant. And it changes for each person. Something is displeasing to your mind is very pleasing to someone else's mind, according to the mode of nature they're under. Like the pig, to him, eating the stool is very relishable. But we're looking, a very horrible thing. How could we eat the stool? So he's looking one way and we're seeing other way. So it's a very relative thing, and it's all sense perception according to the body, according to the mind that goes to the body, intelligence, everything like that. Something appeals to your intelligence. Something, your intelligence is repulsed by another thing. So dualities come and go. And what is the cause of it? Sensory perception. And what is the why? Because we're the soul, eternal, but we're identifying like that. I'm my body, I'm my mind, I'm my intelligence. So therefore, we're affected. We get affected, even though we're the soul. This soul cannot be affected by heat and cold and so on and so forth. But so, if someone philosophically at least, one may have not come to fully realise and be on that platform, but at least philosophically you understand these things is very good. And how you should deal with it. Titikshafam, tams titikshafam bharata. Titikshafam means one has to try to tolerate these things. One must learn to tolerate them. So you have to develop your tolerance and your forbearance. This is the qualities of especially of the Brahmana. The Brahmana, he's very tolerant, he's very forbearing. Forbearance means that there's disturbance. You're very tolerant and there's disturbance and you're able to withstand that disturbance. You just, why? Because you know it's temporary. So that's the reason, even philosophically. You have to... Now here it is said, without being disturbed. Now, Swambhuva Manu and anyone who's in the transcendental position is not going to be disturbed. So how are they not going to be disturbed? They're not going to be disturbed in their consciousness. Certainly things that happen to the body are disturbance to the body. Just like the mosquitoes come, I remember many years ago before we had the Juhu temple in the tenements there, we were on the land, and before the construction of our temple at Juhu Beach. We were there one time and we were sleeping on the roof and so many mosquitoes were there. Unbelievable mosquitoes at night time, and unfortunately we didn't have any net. And so we were unaware, but all of a sudden in the night time it came. So in the morning we couldn't sleep. We had so many bites everywhere. So certainly this is a disturbance on the body. But what is not disturbed? The body is certainly disturbed by the mosquitoes. Prabhupada even said one time, someone said in Mayapur to Prabhupada, there's so many mosquitoes here, can we take action against them? Can we kill them? He said, it's not very good. Not very good. He said, but I know it is very difficult with these mosquitoes. If possible, avoid. But sometimes they are attacking with deadly weapon. You might be able to rationalize like that. So try to avoid killing mosquitoes. There's actually some sort of personality in charge of mosquitoes. I read in one Purana somewhere. So he's not pleased when you kill the mosquitoes even. Anyway, so in general, the principle is we try to avoid. But it's certainly a disturbance. So this is just one example. Certainly a disturbance of the body. And, so many things happen on the mind level. Someone says something, you get disturbed, hot and cold. So certainly these things are a disturbance. It floods, you get I read some poor lady was in her house, a whole house, just out west there, near Forbes area. She was an old lady, she was in the house and the big flood came and swept the whole house. While she was inside, the whole house went in the river. She was calling out. Luckily some boys were nearby and they swam there and rescued her. So certainly there's disturbance. You can't say in one sense, although here it said no. But what is not going to be disturbed? Our consciousness. Because one has to understand that because some people, especially those who are seeking idyllic life or someone, they want to follow the yoga path, they think by following they're going to come to a point where in the material world nothing is going to disturb me. I'm going to go to that place or that situation where it's not going to be too hot, not going to be too cold, there's going to be no mosquitoes, there's going to be no flies, there's going to be no other animals, no one is going to say anything nasty to me, my mind's not going to, that's the result of my yoga. I'm going to find the perfection in the material. No. See, this is a big mistake. You won't find it. There's no perfection anywhere in this world, even in the higher planetary systems. So the mistake is that. With the not disturbed means your consciousness is not disturbed. Your consciousness remains fixed. Param drishva, vishaya vinivantate, niraharasya, rasopyasa, param drishva nivartate. By becoming fixed in the higher, by experiencing the higher taste of Krishna consciousness, then you remain fixed, then you remain undisturbed. So your Krishna consciousness is not disturbed. Mosquitoes are biting, this, that, and the other thing. Someone may become like that. I remember many years ago when I was president of Melbourne Temple, decades ago, that some bhakta all of a sudden came in the office and that's it, I'm going. What's the matter, Prabhu? Why are you leaving? Yeah, new bhakta. And because every morning I'm asking that devotee for extra pakura or something extra, and he doesn't give. It's a personal thing. So now that's it. I've had enough. I'm leaving the Krishna consciousness. So the beginning devotee, even the smallest thing, can you just give up your Krishna consciousness? So this is not, this is not staying fixed. This is being affected by the disturbance. So when someone is actually in the transcendental position, even these things happen, and you acknowledge, this is disturbance. Something has to be done, some arrangement. I had to go talk to that devotee, I had to go and placate the one who wanted to leave the Krishna consciousness, and somehow or other we smoothed everything out, and it was all right. But that one was prepared to give up the Krishna consciousness, so it was disturbed. But someone who's more advanced, these things happen. And whether it's on the body level or the mind level or intellectual level, their Krishna consciousness doesn't change. So this is the meaning of being not disturbed. So therefore it is said here, how can anyone who has taken shelter of Krishna, completely under the shelter of Krishna, be put into miseries pertaining to the body and the mind? Now Krishna arranges nice things for his devotees, even on the material level. Sometimes every now and again he gives a prick to maybe rectify someone in giving some subtle discipline or something, some subtle instruction. But generally, even for the devotee, Krishna looks after the devotee, even on the material platform. But it's not to say that the devotee is expecting this thing or is going to be affected when doesn't get that thing. No, he remains fixed. So I remember there was one story, Arjuna, he was travelling and he came across an old sage and he was living. He found out from others that there was that sage, that sage had been living a long life. He was doing tapasya in meditation. And he had the blessing, others told him, that he had the blessing. He would live as long as there was hairs on his body. For every hair on the body, he would live 1 year. So how many hairs do we have on the body? So he was blessed to live a long life. So Arjuna saw he was just sitting, and he was sitting in the sun, getting the hot sun on his head. So he came to him and he offered, he said, let me build one bhajan kunti for you. Let me build one hut, so at least you're not. And that sage, he said that, don't bother, I'm just here temporarily. So how advanced was that person? He didn't even... of course, where's that story of that, who was that? Raghunath Das Goswami was living in the sun doing his bhajan and everything like that, and then one time, who was it? Sanat Goswami came there and saw that Srimati Radharani had come to give shelter with her sari, and so he went and chastised him. Don't, make Radharani serve you like that. Another time, wasn't another time then some tigers came there, and then and Krishna came, and Krishna came to protect his devotee from the tigers. And then Sanatana Goswami saw that, and then look, now Krishna's come. I don't know what was, I think Krishna was first, and then when Radha, that was too much. When Radha came, he said, no, that's too much, that's it, you have to get the bhajan kuti. That's enough. You're not putting Krishna and Radha doing your service for you. So that's another thing. But this sage for Arjuna, he said, don't worry. I'm not sure, I can't remember whether Arjuna actually built the hut for him, but that was his response. So that's a very, very elevated stage. Not all of us can be, of course, on that level. And so he's very, very advanced devotee. So he is not disturbed, doesn't matter, hot sun. Prabhupada actually gives the example here, just like, in the winter, especially in India, even here, he gives the example, just like in Vrindavan, in the cold winter in January, February, very, very cold there. Anyone who's been in Vrindavan in January, February, very, very cold. But nevertheless, you have to go and take your bath. I remember reading in Prabhupada Leelamrita, he knew the art of taking the bath in the January, February. He would go to he knew that spot in the Jamuna, which was close to the shore, where the water was a little bit warmer. And he would go there. Because you imagine that it's so cold, and you take the cold bath from the Jamuna, and the Lodha, everything. So he knew just a little bit warmer spot. Anyway, so you have to take your bath. Well, it's too cold, I'm not taking any bath. You have to go and take your bath. And then he says that's just like in the summer, in April, May or something in the summer, it's so hot. So the ladies, they still have to go in the kitchen and cook. What we're not going to eat now, because it's too hot. The ladies have to go and cook. So it's already hot, and especially in Vrindavan, Delhi side or everywhere, 40, 45 degrees. But, so you have to go in the kitchen, which makes more hot. With the fire, everything. But what are you not going to eat? You have to go in there. So you just have to tolerate these things. And if you can remain undisturbed, then your Krishna consciousness is the best. So this is the actual recommendation of Krishna. How do you deal with these things? Krishna gives the instruction. This is the way you do it. You become fixed in your own Krishna consciousness and just understand philosophically. These things come and go. Happiness comes, but happiness will also. There's people, I want happiness all the time, but it'll go. It's the karma thing. And suffering will come, and sometimes people say, suffering is going to be forever, I'll give up in suicide, to commit suicide. I said, no, that'll also go, that'll become, sometimes a long time, sometimes a short time, that's karma. But it's temporary. So at least philosophically we understand these things and try to get good association to understand more. And if we remain fixed, then we're not disturbed in our Krishna consciousness, just like Swayambhuva Manu, undisturbed, so elevated devotee, very, very great soul. So, Hare Krishna, thank you very much. Does anyone have any question or comment? Yes, Kamesh.
Very inspiring class tonight. On this point about miseries being inevitable in our lives, how much should we tolerate and how much should we try to fix it?
How much should we tolerate?
At what point do we know that maybe I should try to fix this situation, and at what point should I conclude that I should just accept?
Well, you always judge these things as far as your service. Okay. Just like Sanat Goswami, when he went to Puri, he wanted to commit suicide, jump under the Rath Yatra cart, right? And, oh no, that was, yeah. He did, yeah, he did like that. And also he didn't want Lord Chaitanya, but they said your body is, you have service to do. So you judge those things by the service. Okay, I'm getting sick, everything like that. I have to look after my health. I want to continue with my service, so I have to look after my body. And Prabhupada gave many instructions like that. So that's the general rule. General rule, you have to see, you have to see each circumstance, but the general principle is like that. As far as our Krishna consciousness, we have to maintain our health. Prabhupada wanted his disciples to be nice and healthy so they can practice their Krishna consciousness without unnecessarily being disturbed, always sick or something like that. As far as possible. We don't go to extremes, but as far as possible, look after your health nicely. And so, there's so many specific circumstances. What about this? What about that? But the general principle is that. Maintain nice Krishna consciousness, and something is a disturbance too much. And if you're in a designated position, like a temple president or something like that, then you have to see to the comforts of others, then you have to also take action on that level. That is your designated service, your duty. You have your duty, your prescribed duty, and as far as in devotional service. So you have to tend to yourself, and you have to look after others as well. Just like in the family, the father, he has to look after himself, tolerate and or take care, and he has duty to his wife, to the children, to other family members. So he has to do all those things together. So it has to be all weighed up. And the golden rule is, and how to see it in light of advancement in Krishna consciousness. What do I need to do? Make their lives more peaceful in Krishna consciousness, my life, others' life, be able to do nice service, so they let me take care of this situation. All right? Yes, one last question.
Tolerance and forbearance for an individual person can be easier, that can be doable. Then again, sometimes we see devotees being received incorrectly from other sources of living, but in their heart. And the last thing we want, the devotees having wrong conception about us. And then because Krishna lives in their heart, and then we go through devotees to go to Krishna, Radha Krishna. So, devotees like Chintamani,
Again, in regard to devotional service, generally devotees don't like to, if something happens, they say bad things that are not true or something like that. That's a very hard to tolerate. There's a slight difference between tolerance and forbearance. Tolerance means in the difficult situations you just tolerate. Forbearance means if someone specifically does something against you, and you tolerate that. That's more forbearance. But but as far as that's concerned, again, devotional service, you judge it by your activities in Krishna consciousness, that you yourself, but if it's going to affect your ability to engage in Krishna's service, then you might mention it to someone. Generally, the devotees don't try to do anything directly, but you might mention it to someone. Could you please, clarify this situation? What they have said is not correct because now it's affecting my service. Now it's affecting my ability to engage in Krishna, do nice Krishna consciousness. Maybe my reputation is being slandered, and now it's affecting. I can't do the service because of that thing. Not that personally, because we're beginning, we do feel personally. But the more advanced devotees say, well, they're going to say what they're going to say. It's not true or true, whatever it is, still. But now it's affecting my Krishna conscious ability to do this service, so something should be done here. And so then generally the devotees will talk to someone else in a position who's a third party to be able to, can you just try to clarify that with that person and just explain a little bit. Well, sometimes it's even helpful to want to seek an audience with that individual devotee. But it's a bit of a subtle difference there. It's hard to see the line sometimes. But anyway, just generally speaking, that's the kind of philosophy behind it.
I usually tend to be quiet, sometimes it affects you.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it does, you know.
It
It does, yeah, because
Yeah.
it affects everybody. Yeah, just life in the world. We have to get out, go back to Krishna like.
Just
All right.
Ravi's a nice question. It was just following up on that. Like my sort of statement, like too simple. Like I would think, to go to the person and find out whether the person is satisfied or not. Instead of like thinking yourself that I've done. This is the line that okay, I've done enough. Now I cannot go any further. But the person that you think that you have some sort of differences or whatever, you need to go to the person and find out whether have I done enough or not.
Yeah, that's one way of doing it.
Yeah.
One way of doing it, but you have to judge every situation in separately, see what's the best method. I remember one time, the two devotees were arguing, very angry with each other, and then they both came to me individually, separately, and then I said, well, ultimately, it's good to, beg forgiveness from each other from any offences, but don't do it right now while there's still anger there. Just wait a little while. So you have to see each situation. We go when you're both a little bit more peaceful. Wait another day or two, and then go. Otherwise, if you go there when they're angry still, then they could spark a bigger thing. Yeah. So it takes a little bit of expertise and experience. Not easy. It's very difficult. All right, thank you. Hare Krishna. Jai, all glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai.